It is time to once again go over all balanced druid stuff for phase 6 and a little bit of phase 7 with the homie Wonder, who has recently taken over for the WowHead guides. So definitely check out WowHead and get the information there as well, because it'll be continuously updated throughout the phases. But Wonder, welcome back. Let's talk some Boomkin.
It'll be fun. Hopefully the WowHead guides I write aren't going to be too problematic. It's an interesting process, writing those guides. Sometimes you want to put so much information on one page, and you're like, oh, hang on, this is probably too much for right now. So, in a spot like this, I can let my mind go crazy, talk about whatever as it comes, so long as you're with me.
Oh yeah. I was looking at it the other day with my buddy Wagyu. Some people know her as Chicken Tendy in the guild I'm in, Swamp. But we were noticing that there was only like one gear set for our Biss. And we were like looking at the Hunter, they have 4. I'm like, dude, where's our like second set, our third set? We need an AoE set on here. We need all this stuff. Like, one set, Wonder, come on.
Well, I mean, I guess this is where you have to ask yourself some questions, right? So you have the gear at the top of the page as that you're looking at the set made, but then you have like the big long discussion that's below as to what value each item could potentially bring. And as I was writing that, I kept getting pulled into, really, we don't have many choices for gear, at least in AQ. So the difference between the AoE set and the single target set is what, 2 pieces? It's 3 pieces. It's really not like a significant amount of pieces. So I thought, because of that, I'll just leave the one set up, basically the guide. And if you want to make small variations, then this is up to you to decide what those variations are going to be. And I guess it's in part because I really enjoy the process of trying to figure things out yourself and having a community asking questions. Whereas if you have, let's theoretically, everything on one website, and then you're not communicating with anyone, not talking about it, not thinking about it, then I think that detracts from the value of the game. So having at least one good piece of information, the accurate one on the WowHead side, I think is correct. But beyond that, I want you to socialize as much as you can. That's what the game's all about.
And to socialize, the Balanced Druid Discord even has more information than the WowHead guide that you're also a part of. So yeah, definitely check out both of those for everything to get the min-max sweaty, but like behind the scenes numbers of why everything is set the way it's set on the websites. But yeah, let's
yeah, I might go into a little bit of that detail here, but we'll see how we go.
Cool. Yeah, let's get into the runes. We got to start off basic here. There could be some people trying to see if they're interested in returning. They might not have been playing since like phase 1 or phase 2. They took a break and now they're kind of interested in coming back. So some of these runes might be new for people that have already played, or there could be some people that haven't tried SoD at all. They're getting interested now that it's in one of the final phases. Nax is about to come out. Let's briefly go over these runes. There's not really a big choice in those runes for each slot. Maybe there's a situation for 1 or 2 of them that we can think of, but yes, let's go through with the helm and go down. I like to go around the sheet, like
yep.
Cool. You know what I'm talking
that's
about.
Fine.
So yeah.
So the helm is the only rune where we have some variation in what we might be running. And the reason that you might have some variation is, one is a AoE based rune, the other is a defensive rune that you could be using on a tank. So if your raid is struggling, then we would say to use the bark skin rune, which reduces damage taken by the tank or yourself, and removes the penalty, the cast time penalty, when the bark skin is cast. The better rune to be running, at least from my point of view, is the Gale Winds rune. This increases the damage and removes the cooldown of your Hurricane spell. we might skip the shoulders though. Go for now, and we'll come back to that one because that's the new one. For the following rune slots, this is basically the only choice, unfortunately. So for the cloak, the best and only choice is Starfall. This is a large AoE spell, and when we get to the next in the new tier set, that's going to be so ridiculously strong, it's crazy. The chest rune is Fury of the Storm Rage, which allows your Wrath casts to cost no mana. Perfect for somebody that is leveling. Its utility at the end of the game, however, kind of a bit muted. Doesn't really impact us that much.
I've been going a little in AQ40. So like if I have to battle res somebody or something and throw an innervate, it's like say it was a healer that died, I have to be res to throw an innervate, and casting as many starfires as I have been, mana has been a little bit of an issue here and there. So
are you mana potting?
Maybe not.
Yeah, so one of those things, right? Like, so,
I haven't been ruining either.
Yeah, so if you run into that sort of position, then those consumables just become required. But yeah, the chest slot is basically a bit, to my mind, a bit muted. And that's okay. It's really just a leveling rune. The braces is a Loon's Fires, which increases the duration of our dots. This rune in particular has some rotation implications. But that's kind of going to change in Nax as well. We might come to that in a little bit. The gloves gives us a new dot called Sunfire. It's the same functionality as Moonfire, and it does about the same amount of damage. The next slot is the belt, which is Eclipse. This gives lunar or solar stacks, depending on which spell you've cast between Wrath, Star Surge, which is the next rune, and Starfire. And it encourages you to alternate your spells while killing a boss for some damage buffs. The next rune, Star Surge, is just a single target spell that buffs the next Starfire cast that you do. Then you have Dream State for the boot slot. This increases the damage taken on your target on nature and arcane spells. Now, and it also gives you a little bit of mana back. Sadly, this was nerfed in PvP. It used to work on other players, giving them a buff, but now it doesn't. And probably the two most underrated but required runes are the ring runes, where you get nature specialization and arcane specialization, which give 6% hit to either of those two spells being cast. So there are runes. There used to be a bit of flexibility if you went PvP, where you would take oh god, go get have to help me here. Survival of the Fittest is a chest rune.
Yeah.
Which would reduce the damage taken. And for the boot slot, you would consider taking Survival Instinct, which was like a defensive cooldown that gave you a boost of health. And for the braces, you would consider taking Improved Frenzied Rejuvenation, which was a heal that consumed, or it was a hot that consumed your mana while in form. But both of those have been nerfed recently for PvP, so that they do not work in Moonkin form.
It's very, very noticeable. If you were playing like last phase where they did work in Moonkin, yeah, it was a rough change for me to handle because I've been PvPing a lot.
Yeah, and it basically meant that we went from a super tanky caster to relatively squishy. You have to go back to the gameplay of kiting a bit more and not getting caught by anyone, because once you're caught, you're a bit screwed. But look, that's okay. That's the desired intent now, so I guess we run with that.
Well, one more PvP
but yeah, I think that's
rune.
a pretty good summary of the runes.
Just for the helm.
One more?
Yeah, the helm, I've been using Barkskin for PvP. instead of Gale Winds.
Yep.
I had a brain fart the other day. I was doing some world PvP and I came across a couple of balanced druids, and I popped Starfall and I was expecting to have spell pushback on them, but they had bark skinned and they were just casting Starfires at me with no pushback, and I'm sitting there with mine getting pushed back. I'm like, what is this guy doing? And I laid down later that night and it's like to go to bed. As soon as my head hit the pillow, it clicked and I was like, the bark skin rune. Okay. So yeah, there's a couple of different rune choices for PvP, and I haven't been using the boot rune. Was that survival instincts? I haven't used that one in a while, but there have been some situations where I'm like, man, if I would have had that, I would have lived right here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a little bit of changes for PvP.
And it just keeps it interesting. I mean, the entire PvP world in SoD is not exactly popping off as much as I'd like it to, but alas, it's just the way it goes, I guess.
All right, did you want to get into the shoulder runes now, or?
Yeah, so let's do that. So in Nax we have, might not be Nax itself, it might be with the new raids, we don't know yet, but there's some new content that comes out in the next phase that allows you to pick any of the set bonuses from MC all the way through to AQ and place that bonus on your shoulders. That set bonus cannot stack, so you can't have two BWL2 pieces bonuses active at once. But if you don't have, let's say, the BWL2 piece in your gear set, you can say, hey, I want that bonus, so that's going to be my shoulder rune, in theory. Now, these are going to be consumables, so it's likely that we'll have to farm them in some way, and then you can place them on your shoulder, rather than it being interchangeable through the rune tab page, like every other rune is. So that might require a little bit of pre-planning for some classes, where it might be optimal to swap between shoulder enchants, or let's call them enchants for now, shoulder runes, on some fights if you want AoE focus, or if you want single target focus. That's not something that I've figured out if it's going to be appropriate for us yet. What I can say is I went back and had a look to see what value each of the different set bonuses gave us from a raw DPS to that set bonus now being active perspective. And some of the numbers that we get from set bonuses are just crazy. So for the ZG set bonus alone, the 3-piece, we get 21% of our DPS is accounted for in just that set bonus. The Nax 6-piece bonus is going to be 30% of our DPS is accounted for in just that bonus. Now, every other bonus is not as large as, I think the highest is 6%, 6.5%. So what that means from a gearing perspective is we have to have the Nax 6-piece and we have to have the ZG 3-piece in our gear. Now, we can't get the Nax set piece on the shoulders, so the question is, can we put, or is it valuable enough to put the ZG set bonus on the shoulders? And I unfortunately think the answer is it is not valuable, because of the way in which the Nax 6-piece is going to work. So for those of you that haven't looked at that gear yet, the Nax 6-piece basically means that your Starfire cast is infinite. It goes forever while targeting undead mobs. Now, there is a bit of a caveat that I want to talk about as we go through this video, but we'll get to that in a bit around that. But that means that other set bonuses that buff Starfall suddenly go from having very little value to having quite a lot of value. And specifically, I'm talking about the BWL2 piece. That used to only be a 1.4% DPS increase to the damage that we did. But in combination with the next piece, that value jumps to 7%. And it's only 2 pieces of gear.
What's the BWO set bonus you're talking about?
So that increases the damage of Starfall by 20% or 25%.
Oh, yeah, the 2. Yep.
Yep. And so because your Starfall's now going to be constantly being cast, or it's never stopping, all of a sudden that 25% value becomes huge. And so that's now a item or a set bonus that I went, oh, okay, this might be something that we'd want to have permanently on our gear. But there's a unique interaction with the way each of those 3 set bonuses work. The ZG one operates on 2 pieces of it operate on the trinket and the next slot, which the other 2 set bonuses don't require. And the next set bonus has the ring, which you can put a set, you can put as a part of your set. So that means that we can actually run those 3 set bonuses in our gear, not even needing the shoulder rune. And so for now, that's what I'm running as Abyss. And that won't change until we see the new Nax gear. So my suggestion for what should go on this rune slot for now, and it might change depending on what new gear is released, would be to put the AQ 4-piece set bonus on. Now this one increases the crit damage of your casted spells, basically. So it's roughly, it's not a large buff. In terms of net DPS gain, it's about a 6.6% gain to your DPS. But it's basically just the next best option, unfortunately. It's not really exciting or anything like that, but for that reason, that's the one I would be suggesting goes on your shoulders, and you make up the others with your gear.
All right, one of the other ones that I was curious about that you've probably tested, I would imagine, is the 3% hit. I think that was from MC. That might have been the 3 set from that. Did you mess around with having 3% hit as the shoulder rune?
The honest answer is no, I haven't. But the reason is because I don't know what the next gear is.
Yeah, and there's getting to be more and more hit on the pieces now too, like 2% hit and some crit sometimes, and a lot of spell power. So yeah, that hit might be kind of outdated. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess it's just a wait and see. That'll be a question of gear optimization. I don't know how much of a percentage value 3% hit is on a rune slot. Like if it's only 6.6% and we can get a huge value from putting another piece on, then potentially it's just better to put the 3% hit on. But that's kind of boring, isn't it?
I know. I'm glad that it's probably not going to be the one that we're looking forward to.
But yeah, so if I can give a rough estimate, I've guessed what sort of spell power values are going to be across the Nax gear, and how much crit we would roughly get. And I am almost thinking that we will be doing as much as a 50% DPS increase from this phase to next phase. So this could get really nutty with what sort of damage output we'll be generating. And I would throw a word out there for a bit of fun and say, don't expect this to be balanced. I think that this is going to go crazy, and whatever combinations that any class can potentially have, it's just going to allow the fun to go, if you know what I mean. So I think that's the intent of a seasonal server like SoD. So if you are looking to come back, now is the perfect time to just enjoy the chaos.
Yeah, one thing that was making me nervous, though, was the Nax set bonus being only for a damage bonus to undead. So it's like, what happens when we go back and we're running AQ40? Is there going to be a different base for AQ40 when we're in there versus when we're in Nax? Because there's a lot less undead mobs in AQ40, so that set bonus
Well,
doesn't really have that much value then.
that 6-piece set bonus likely wouldn't have that much value. You're correct.
Mm.
But what I would likely do is end up just adding 2 other pieces to like the BWL set bonus, or just increasing one of those to the next tier up, rather than like the trends might come back. It's not the end of the world. It's not really fun, but the value in those next pieces are likely going to mean that you won't bother. You won't worry about it. Now, if I may, there is something I'm concerned about from a min-max perspective about that 6-piece bonus. Now, I've sent a message to the devs about it because it's kind of really anti-fun, and I am really concerned about it. So, how do I explain this? So, the next 6-piece set bonus, the way it's currently written and performs, says that whenever you land, maybe I should pull it up because I'm forgetting what the
Yeah, I'll read it off while you're finding it. Yeah.
Thank you.
When your Star Surge strikes an undead target, the remaining duration on your active Starfall is reset to 10 seconds.
Right. So it's when Star Surge hits an undead target, your Starfall increases. So my concern around this is what happens when a Star Surge resists. So what I'm seeing happen is the 4-piece allows us to cast Star Surge much more frequently. Okay, so it goes from a 6-second cooldown to a 4.5-second cooldown, which means that you get 2 Star Surge casts within the active Starfall window, right? But if one resists and you happen to be mid-rotation and you're delayed in casting the next one for whatever reason, you lose your entire Starfall generation. And that DPS impact could be as much as like 700, 800 DPS from just one resist taking place and being a little bit unlucky. So we have a massive left tail risk on our DPS curve. And that is going to be a little bit awkward and unfun. So I'm advocating at the moment that it gets changed in some way, or that Star Surge just can't be resisted. It just always hits. Because otherwise, because it always, the buff applies when it lands on the target, not when you cast a spell, right? So if it changes to when you cast the spell, then we have no problem, at least for this perspective. But then we might have the problem around the mob type that you're targeting being undead, and we just have a bug where we can have Starfall active everywhere because it's on cast. So there is at least an implementation issue that I have around that, and unfortunately it's not something we'll be able to test to prove until we're in and we have the actual 6-piece. So just a word of caution for the future around that. If you're looking to compete against others for damage output, that there is a risk or something that could impact you, and it's got nothing to do with your ability or anything like that. It just could be really, really bad RNG.
Yeah. I can't think of any mobs in Nax off the top of my head that have mind control capabilities, but I could see us having to use Starfall, and then just naturally in our rotation, it would just keep resetting the duration. So we'd either have to like have a macro to cancel aura or something, or just not cast Star Surges to let it fall off before the mind controls go out.
Just let them die, mate. Just let them die.
Yeah, just
they can get their well buff consumables, pop them, and that's all good.
Everybody has to pop an arcane protection potion before the fight to make sure they don't get one shot.
I have one ready just in case. I mean, that's a bit chaotic, I know, but there's just I would argue there's just too much value from that thing being active all the time. But you know what safe guilds are like? They might shy away from that, so it is what it is.
All right, you happy with the shoulder runes? Want to move on to? I got talents next. This should
Sure.
be pretty quick.
Yeah, talents in terms of design have not changed. In all of SoD or any, I guess, classic version of a balanced druid. And so I don't. Do we want to go through all of them? I would just say it's if you've ever played balanced druid before, it's basically the same build that you've done. You take almost everything in the balance tree, except for quote unquote dead rune slots like improved entangling roots, natural shapeshifter, nature's grasp. You could potentially get if you wanted PvP rather than a bit of mana sustain because mana's not an issue. And improved thorns, you just don't take those from the balance tree. And then in the restoration tree, you take improved mark of the wild, nature's focus, reflection, and insect swarm. But in terms of the relevance or the need, insect swarm's not required in your rotation anymore. Reflection, we don't have any spirit, so this has really not that much value. I think at least having 1 point in there is good, so that there's always some mana ticking back, but beyond that, I don't necessarily think it's required. Then there's a juggling act. You tend to have a couple of points that you can put between either the Moonglow talent or this reflection talent. Where you put the 3 points is up to you. I don't think it's necessarily that impactful.
Yeah, the only thing I would add there is natural weapons was changed for SoD, so people might be looking at the talent thing that I have on screen, which is from the sim, where it's got 5 out of 5 natural weapons. It's no longer only physical attacks, it's also your spells. So natural weapons, very, very strong talent there. And then Omen of Clarity also changed to where it can proc off of spells. So those 6 points there, I would say, are kind of mandatory as well.
Yeah.
Improved moon.
Go on.
Improved Moonfire changed too. It used to just be base damage. They've buffed it to where it scales. So it's kind of like a Dark Moon Fair buff, if you will, for your Moonfire, Sunfire, and Starfall. So yeah, improved Moonfire, like mandatory. Got to get it.
Yeah, they also did that with the Moon Fury talent a little bit further down as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, those underwhelming talents have suddenly started to see some value, which is nice. It doesn't change our tree, unfortunately, in any way, but at least it makes the tree a little bit more relevant now.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
There's also a subtle change that took place where Boomkins get spell power for every level that they have, and they increase that by 1. So we now get a free 60 spell power. In total, 180 spell power. Just for sitting in Moonkin form, which is just a nice buff that keeps us up with everybody else.
Yeah, and while leveling up my fresh alt, it felt so good getting to 40 and being able to get Moonkin form because that spell power kicked in. I had Hurricane finally. Like, you just get so many things at level 40, and that spell power is really nice. And yeah, I couldn't believe that they buffed it. It was 2 spell power per level, and in this phase, in phase 6, they were like, we're going to give you an extra spell power per level, an extra 60 spell power. And I was like, yo, thanks, guys. Appreciate that one.
Look, behind the scenes, there's been a lot of advocacy work taking place around the scalability of some classes. And I don't know if many of you play other classes or watch to see what's going on in their space, but Warlock's getting scaling from Spirit, Shaman's getting scaling from Intellect, all come from this general view that some casters are just not scaling anywhere near as much as others, and we needed tools available to us that would help us keep up. Now, the Boomkin one, sadly, is a little bit boring, where they've just given us the flat spell power in the Moonkin form, and that's okay, like, I'll take it. I would much rather a dynamic one that increased marginally as I got new pieces of gear.
Yeah.
But look, that's something that I've spoken about with the devs, and if there is some sort of Classic Plus in the future, one can only hope that will be taken into consideration. But For now, that's our additional form of scaling that we've gotten, plus the changes that we've had to our talent tree here. So, yeah.
All right, cool. Let's talk a little bit more about gear. You've gone over a couple of set bonuses while we were talking about the shoulder runes, but I think we have a couple of different options for our trinkets. Go over the hit cap really quick, and do you have any information on how much value crit has on pieces of gear? Somebody might see a piece that has 1% hit versus a piece that has, say, a little bit of extra spell power. So, like, if you have anything to talk about for crit, that would be a chance to get that out there. I know sometimes on the Balance Druid Discord, they're just like a 1% crit is worth 12 spell power or something.
I'll have to run a sim and see if I can remember how to find that information, what the value of the EP value of it is.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes I forget how to check that.
Same here. That's why I was like, maybe
It's not something that I ever think about, very frequently. Okay, so here we go. One spell hit, if you like this sort of analytical way of thinking, is worth 11.75 spell power. Okay. But the awkward thing about spell hit is that once you have the hit level, that's what it's worth. As you drop value, the value changes. Okay, so the cap that you have to get to in total is 16%, but we get 6% from our ring runes, so that means that from the gear, 10% hit is required. Okay. Now that has some ramifications because of the gear choices that we make. Now, our DPS output is predominantly as a result of the tier set bonuses being active, more than anything else. And so, as a function of just the ZG and the BWL set bonuses, I'm highly likely to pick those as the hit pieces unless there are Nax items that have like 3% hit on them or 2% hit in that tier set. So for now, the locked in items that will not change in phase 7 will be the ZG trinket, the Wooshlay's Charm of Nature, the ZG neck, the pristine enchanted South Seas kelp, and the Nax ring, the band of the Dreamwalker. They're the 3 pieces that are simply required for DPSing as a balanced druid. The other slots, I can't tell you what's going to be optimal yet. Outside of there will be one other ZG piece, and there will be 2-piece BWL in there somewhere. I suspect that, as I said before, the BWL pieces are going to be on the slots that are less valuable, where they don't have like chunky stats. So they tend to be like your legs, your helm, or your chest slots. So instead, it might be that your wrists might be something like your wrist might go to, I don't know, the wrist slot, which is where it currently is in the BIS list, and you might make it the boots, for example, which I think is a little bit awkward because in the current BIS we've told people to get rid of BWL boots, and I think they're running shoulders instead, and that depends on what gear setup you've got. But unfortunately, this is just something that we're going to have to figure out once that gear comes out. But I would expect the wrist slot to be the BWL 2-piece. And I would expect the ZG slot to be the belt. Okay, the Zandalar. I can't say that word.
Oh, try it.
Haru
You have
specs.
to. Okay, nice.
Haru specs belt. And yeah, that's what I would expect to be at least the locked-in pieces. And then from there, we see what the next pieces look like.
Cool.
In terms of EP value for crit, I would say that 1% crit is worth about 7.5 spell power.
A little bit lower than I was expecting.
Yeah. So that's, I think, where things are sitting at the moment. I'll run an updated sim to see if that changes with the new gear set, but I don't think it will. So yeah, that's roughly where I think the start weights are sitting. I don't think that's something I'll put on, say, the WowHead page. That would be left or reserved for the Boomy Discord if people want that sort of information.
All right, so let's say you don't have the Nelf's tier, because that's the other main trinket that you're going after. So somebody like me that has done BWL about 5 times, never seen it drop. Are there alternate trinkets, like not considering the hit cap or anything that you get from having that trinket, but any other really good trinkets that like Balanced Druids could look towards getting if they're coming back to the game?
There is that one that Enchants can make. What's it called? Tear of the Dreamer. It's basically the Nax. The Nels tier trinket. Except it has 1% less hit, but it has a little bit more spell power. So there's a slight trade-off, but we know that it's a worse piece. But it's pretty close to having the Nax. Sorry, I keep saying the Nax. Nels tier. What that means is you need to run 1% hit somewhere else. And there are ring options that you can choose where you can get an extra 1% hit from rings. So that's where I would suggest you make the difference up.
That's an expensive trinket, though, by the way. I think it was about 2K gold. My buddy
Is it
like,
still worth that much?
Yeah, there's one of the items. I can't find it right now on... Oh, Tear the Dreamer. Is that it?
Yeah, Tear the Dreamer. So the Hive Thistle's pretty... Oh, the infused thorium bars.
Yeah,
they are
the infused
expensive.
Thorium bars were like 180 gold each or something. So the 10 of them was 1,800 gold alone. And then the other mats
the rest
so
is cheap.
bad. But yeah. But still like another 100, 200 gold just from the rest of the mats.
And that's really because the trinkets that the others get are really, like, they're their best. And they all require those. So a bit unfortunate, but that's the best option. Now, in Nax, there are going to be a whole heap of new trinkets that I have not tested to see how they perform. And that's going to be a function of what we get on our tier set. So it's just a wait and see.
Yeah.
And of course, if they get buffed.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All
right.
I was just going to say, so my small thing, I think that we are going to be the least gear requiring class in Nax, because most of the slots we just have to have, we've already got. So I'm expecting, or I'm hoping, that we have a weapon upgrade. I'm hoping that we get... Well, we'll obviously get 6 pieces, so that's 6 pieces, 7 pieces in total. And maybe we'll get a ring and a trinket. But that's basically all that we're going to be targeting. So at most, 6 or 7 pieces of gear from Nax. It's going to be very quick to get geared, and then it's going to be crazy, the damage that we'll do. So be ready for a fun time.
I know Atiesh has a couple different versions, and there's some speculation of whether different classes are going to be required to get one of those, not that there's going to be an option of which one that we choose. But yeah, that it could depend, I guess, on which version of Atiesh Druid is able to get, whether that's going to be our best in slot, because there's also going to be a new staff spell power enchant coming as well. Those staffs, staves, whichever, might take over finally for us, because it's been main hand offhand for a while, I think. So
it has.
Yeah.
So one thing that people might not know, and if you're a returning player, it's important to know that the class staff that comes from BWL is kind of unique in the sense that the proc that goes actually scales pretty well with spell power. So as you get incremental increases in gear, the value of that staff increases. And so it's best in the AoE set. It's not best in the single target set, which is what I've got on WowHead right now. but I'm expecting that might be something that we tell you to run for quite a long time in Nax, just because so much of our value is AoE based. And if that thing is proccing like crazy because of Starforge going off, oh my gosh, could have a lot of value. So I think it's important to get that item in your journey. But at the moment, there is no proccing Nax item. No Atiesh item has a proc effect, which is kind of making me think maybe, just maybe, Boomkins might not want it. And there used to be a case, depending on the class that got Atiesh, where it was best to actually not wear Atiesh, and have the other setup and have the Atiesh buff you. It might be that case again for us. It'll be a wait and see to see, just to see what weapons do come available. But yeah, something we're thinking about as well.
All right, we've got one more item slot to talk about, the idol slot. I'm still rocking my Idol of the Moon from Phase 1. I got it, I paid gold for it, and I can't get rid of it. But the Idol of Sidereal Wrath, kind of like that crafted trinket, another crafted item, and it still cost, I think it was $275 on the auction house. It's gone way down. It was like 800 gold or something at the start of the phase, but now it seems to be a reasonably priced idol, so I might have to end up picking it up. But 3% damage, Moonfire, Wrath. I guess that also includes Sunfire and Starfall. But it's not boosting Starfire, and that's our biggest damage hitting spell. And to not have that included has made me just not even want to grab it. But I feel like I'm almost not forced to get it because the idol DPS differences isn't too extreme. If as long as you have one, I think you're kind of good to go. But yeah, what do you think about the idols?
I feel like the idols is an area where potentially I'm gatekeeping information. Not deliberately. I think it's just a function of the way that AQ has kind of played out, in the sense that we are getting so much value from our Starfall that I actually don't think the Idol of Sidereal Wrath is actual BIS. From a sim perspective on single target, yes, it outperforms. But I think actual BIS, in a game sense, is the Idol of Celestial Focus. And I am 100% confident that is going to be the BIS rune in Nax, once you have the Nax 6 piece. Which increases the damage done by Starfall by 10%, but reduces its radius. Which, if we're going to be having Starfall go off like crazy, I think it's like a protection thing that we want to have as well, so that we're not pulling anything and everything around us. So, yeah, I'm kind of thinking that idol is better. It's the one that I'm personally running still. I haven't even gone to buy the new idol yet. I'm performing okay on logs. My raid team's kind of been struggling of late, so I haven't really had the opportunity to get great numbers. That said, I still think that Celestial Focus is going to be pretty equal, if not better, on some fights, just because of the way it works. Yeah, so the shorter the fight, the more value Celestial Focus. The longer the fight, the more value Sidereal Wrath. What's it called? Sidereal Wrath.
Yeah, and the good thing about the Celestial Focus idol, I was trying to look up how many reals it costs, but it's just from the real vendor in Booty Bay. So run some dungeons, do the old raids like Molten Core, BWL that give reals, and you can pick this one up for free. I love a free piece of gear.
Yeah.
All right. Enchants. We've got a lot of new enchants coming and a lot of current new enchants. We've got some hit from some enchants, but we have to go back and continually run ZG to keep getting the helm and leg enchant and get those voodoo dolls and get the idols from Akar and the other two bosses. But pretty strong enchants that we have now.
That one in particular is a super strong enchant. I think that because we get hit on it twice, it means that our requirement for hit goes from 10 to 8 once you've got the enchants on. And that just solves so many problems. In fact, it solves so many problems that it was actually a struggle to find crit pieces of gear to put on with the tier set combination. So it was like oh my gosh, this is a new challenge. Like as a boomy, let's say called theory crafter, let's say, you would just go, where are the hit pieces? Oh, there's one. We're going to throw them on so we can get to our number, and that was it. Job done. Now all of a sudden, these two enchants give us a little bit more flexibility, which is nice. And again, like you were saying, they are simply required because of that value.
The stamina on them is really nice too for PvPing. Like I had to go. I put my first two on my PvP gear first. My rank 13, 14 PvP gear. So now I have to go back in there and get these for my AQ tier once I end up getting them.
Beautiful. I mean, you should have been like me and stockpiled a few while you had the chance. So, because sometimes doing those older raids cannot be a very fun experience. But yeah, there you go. All right, so some of the other enchants that we have available that are new, and I say hallelujah, let's bring them on. There is a new item that elemental leather workers can craft. It's called the glowing chitin armor. That gives 10 spell power to, could apply to the helm, the chest, the gloves, and the boots. But we only ever apply it to chest and boots because those two particular gear pieces didn't really have anything exciting for a boomkin. So that's a free 20 spell power that we didn't have before. There's also a 12 spell power wrist enchant that is now available, rather than the 8 intellect that we would have run beforehand. So again, huge value jump from where we were in the past to today. And then the final one is a arcane damage, 20 spell power on gloves. Again, another slot that we didn't have any enchant that had any value, now gives value. The awkward thing about this enchant is that it requires Skins of Shadow from Scholarmans, depending on how you say it. And they are bind on pickup. So the enchanter has to run Scholar runs for you to get your enchant. That can be a little bit frustrating. I've actually yet to find someone who can do that for me. Or if they can do it, they have the skins available. So I don't have this enchant live on my own gear set yet, which is very annoying.
Same. Yeah.
And I personally saved for no reason whatsoever one Skin of Shadow from when I was doing Scholar, sitting in my bank, but I haven't found the pattern for the glove. So if I did, I'd go get it myself. Anyway, it is what it is. In the meantime, I could put the 10 spell power from the elemental leatherworkers on that instead. But that is pretty expensive. They're 600 gold.
Oh yeah, they're more for my server. Yeah, they were 750, I think, earlier today.
There you go.
Yeah.
And the reason that they're so expensive is because they require 15 in total core leather as one of like the items required, and it doesn't look like that when you look at the requirements of the gear because it needs core armor kits, but core armor kits need core leather, and they come from the dogs in MC, and there are not many MC runs being made today, so the value of those core leathers has gone through the roof, and that's what is prompting the value of those armor kits to be quite expensive. So I'm quietly making a fair bit of gold crafting those. So if anybody needs one, you're more than welcome to reach out to me on Crusader Strike Horde, and I'll gladly make them for you.
And the bracer enchant the mats for that is pretty pricey as well when you consider the essences of water, fire, and air are a bit expensive still. And well, large burning shards, there's only two. Shards are about what 10 gold each sometimes. Greater eternal essence.
The
can
good
be
one about that
expensive.
is if you're a bit short on gold, you can go farm it,
Mm. Yeah,
or at
yeah.
least a majority of them. So that's at least nice.
Yeah, so I've been trying to prep for the glove enchant by running Sholo with my buddy Slan. He's an
Yeah.
enchanter, so we went into Sholo a couple of times, and he just gets all the skins of Shadow. So I've kind of banked up some skins for enchants for me that
Oh, beautiful.
he'll give me once he gets the pattern. Now it's just the waiting game. Like how long is it gonna take for him to get the pattern and raid? And it's just like I want this so bad.
Now, I've heard a little bit of a rumor about this that, and I've not actually gone in to check or see this myself. But in AQ, there is a mob. It's a golden scarab that drops a pattern. But I believe that you can do a soft reset on the raid and it will spawn again. And you can run in and farm said golden scarab for some patterns. So it's something I'm thinking about doing if I can get the motivation to do it, to rush and grab my glove enchant, because I believe it does drop the arcane power enchant. So if you're a boomkin and you've got enchanting, that might be something that you might want to do.
Wait, which raid did you say it was from? Because I thought I saw
from AQ40.
AQ40, but it. So like you're saying you have a cleared ID, and then you're able to go back in there and kill the mob.
So I've been told. As I said, I've not done it myself, so I can't confirm. But yeah, that's what people are telling me.
I remember I've only done AQ40 once, and I think the scarab was right before the twins encounter in that little hallway.
Yeah, I've seen it there, or I've seen it just before Uru.
Okay.
Uru? Sorry.
And we full focused. Like I didn't know what was going on. They were like, "All right, guys, we're gonna put a pull timer down," and I'm like, "Dude, it's one mob. Like, what do you mean, like pull timer?"
Yeah.
But like going in there and doing it, like killing that mob solo, I don't. Unless you're going in there with your full raid team, I don't know how you could.
Well, I don't know if it's possible to do it solo. I don't know how many people you need to do it before it, hides itself or digs its little burrow and disappears.
We did get a pattern. I think it was a engineering pattern. I think we got the Tear of the Dreamer when we killed it, and then it was like some of the idols, like 3 scarab bags. But yeah, unlucky we didn't get the arcane power from it. All right. Enchants. I think we're set there. Well, yeah, I mentioned earlier there's going to be a new staff enchant for a bunch of spell power. I didn't see any for main hand or offhand, but I know they were giving offhand like intellect, but that might have been for just shield. I don't know, but there's going to be some new enchants coming in the next phase. So could even change up what we already have right now a little bit more.
Could be exciting.
Yeah. Consumes. There's a lot of new consumes, and some are a little pricey. Some aren't as bad. I just went and got my cooking up to 300 so I can create my own spell power food, because now we actually have a food that is useful other than some MP5.
Yeah.
But it's taken me a better part of a week to try to get both my cooking and fishing up to 300 from scratch.
I can imagine.
As soon as I saw the price tag on the food, it was like 5 gold per food, and it's a 10-minute duration. I was like, I gotta get my stuff up so I can make these on my own. I'm not paying this price. This is too much.
Yeah. I don't blame you. I mean, the economy in SoD's a little bit skew-if. Some things that you don't think are going to be expensive are suddenly expensive, and then some things that you think are going to be expensive end up being really cheap, and you're like, how does this make any sense? But hey, that's, I guess, the nature and the design changes that they've tried to push into the game. So across the board, the one of the bigger changes is we have a new flask. It's called the Flask of Ancient Knowledge. It gives 180 spell power rather than the 150 that the Flask of Supreme Power gave. It requires a Flask of Supreme Power as a material to make, plus a few of the new mats that you can collect from Silithus. You then have a new weapon oil called the Enchanted Repellent. This gives 45 spell power and 1% crit. This is an increase of about 9 spell power from the previous Brilliant Wizard Oil. You've already signposted this one, the new spell power food. It's called Dark Claw Bisque. It gives 12 spell power or spell damage. Now, a consume that you could use, you probably don't need to use, but if you're in melee range, it does provide a little bit of extra value. Dragon's Breath Chili, but we don't melee anymore, so that you should not be getting that proccing at all. But it is a consume that we could think about using if we happen to find a weapon is lower than 1.5 seconds again. Just on that, our rotation actually allows for melee hits again with the Nax 4-piece and the way our rotation is going to look. But we'll come to rotation in a little bit. Elixir of the Mage Lord is a new spell power elixir. It gives us 40 spell power and increases our nature resistance by 15. This is a 5 spell power increase. There is also an elixir called Elixir of Alcatricity, or I can't say it, which gives movement speed. I think that this is a potion that you should be running in your makeup if you have any interest in your raid going relatively fast. Fortunately, AQ doesn't have many mechanics that requires you to move a lot, so its urgency is not exactly extreme in AQ. But if you happen to have encounters that encourages a fair bit of movement, I can think of the dance in Nax being one of them, then that is a consume that you should be looking to run so that you can get an extra few casts out while doing that movement and maintain your dots on that encounter. Then they have a few odd buffs here or there. One is the Cerebral Cortex Compound, which just increases intellect by 25. It's not exactly a large buff, but hey, it adds a little bit of value. I think it's like 0.3% crit in terms of what it gives us. And then beyond that, the only one that's really left is the new scroll that enchanters can cast, which increases the raid's damage by 40 for spells, and they give 40 attack power as well. Now, only one enchanter needs to cast that. So it's likely somebody in your raid already has it if you haven't got it yourself. But if no one has it, then it's relatively, it's about 12 gold or something like that per use. So it's not that bad. And you're buffing so many people, so it has a lot of value. So they are the consumes outside of an old returning consume from Phase 2, which I personally don't use, but I could if I was trying to push, for the number 1 slot, is the Mildly Irradiated Rejuvenation Potion, which increases spell damage by 35 for 20 seconds, but we would use it for a snapshot purpose on our dots.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, we've spoken a lot about the Nax 6-piece. Starfall is a dynamic spell, so you can't snapshot value into that. If you pop a trinket, the next hits of your Starfall are automatically going to increase, and when the buff falls off, they decrease again. So this is only useful at increasing the damage of your Moonfire and Sunfire spells.
All right. One other thing about
Are you muted, Go? Or are you talking to your partner?
Oh, I forgot to hit my push to talk. But yeah, both. The leatherworking gloves from Phase 1 is also still on the table. So yeah, talking about going back to previous phases for some some damage bonuses. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, those gloves just. I mean, we said it when they first came out. We were like, oh gosh, this is looking really powerful. This might be something that we have to keep and put in our back pocket and pull out again later. And to be perfectly honest, it looked that way in AQ. However, there's a bit of a problem. It is only best on single target fights that are short. The AQ duration of encounters are a little bit too long to make that glove actually worth it. So it's kind of like second best right now on a lot of encounters. It's not technically abyss, but yes, you're right. It has a lot of value. So if you're looking to gear up relatively quickly, and you happen to do some BFDs in your leveling process, and you get this as a result of doing some quests, then look, by all means, add it to your gear, put it in your back pocket, and use it. I would not take it if you have a tier set bonus that is not being activated as a result of wearing those gloves, though.
Fair enough. All right. Any other profession things to put out
Professions are basically free. Okay, so the design intent in Season of Discovery is that your profession will not have a tangible impact on your own personal DPS, and if it does, that benefit will be BOE, or it could be provided by somebody who has that profession and applied to you. So there is no profession that you must have in Season of Discovery. If you want to be a gatherer, you can be a gatherer. If you want to be an engineering PvP god, by all means, go for it. There are alternatives for everybody else to use, or you provide the buff to them as a selling service. That's just available. So, yeah, profession, pick whatever you want.
So the mildly irradiated rejuve potion, that's BOE?
It's now BOE.
Oh, I should have been popping these.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Cool. And then I know there's a new engineering sapper called the Fumigator. And
pretty expensive though.
Okay. I know it can come in handy on Viscidus and AQ. So I've been planning on getting some of those since I'm getting back into raiding a bit more now. Just to have some more bombs. Yeah. But those are also BOE, right? Like,
correct.
There's no engineering requirement on them.
Yeah, so that means that you don't need to have engineering as a profession, which is good. I like it. I mean, the only thing that the only profession that you need to have that I can think of in a niche environment is if you are a speedrunner and you want engineering boots for the sprint. That's basically the largest value that I think a profession can give as a one-off in a raid.
All right, I think it's time for the rotation. If you're ready for it.
So our rotation is, I find it really difficult to explain the current rotation. And I've tried writing it in a few different ways. And I don't know if any of these ways are particularly helpful or clear. So we can contextualize our rotation as a priority list almost. Or we could just contextualize it as this is what you should do, for the first 7 casts. Now, I think the first 7 casts tend to be pretty consistent. So you tend to want to pre-cast a Wrath, and then as that Wrath is flying towards your target, you want to pop all of your cooldowns, like your trinket pops, you want to eat the potions, and then you want to Star Surge. Now, your Star Surge is likely to land the same time as your Wrath lands, so you have a fair bit of threat. You then pop Starfall to get your damage running, and then your dots cycle through. Moonfire, Sunfire become active, and now you start your hard casting rotation, which is at first a Starfire cast to take advantage of the buff that the first Star Surge gave us. Then we Star Surge again, Starfire, and then from here it's just a juggling act of trying to make sure that your dots, particularly Sunfire, does not fall off the target. And the way you do that is by casting Wrath spells or Star Surges. So my advice to people is that when your Sunfire has 5 seconds left on its duration, you need to be Wrath casting or casting Star Surges. And the reason I've allowed for 5 seconds is you get the full value of casting the Wrath. You have to allow for the Wrath travel time. And sometimes what the tooltip shows is 5 seconds might only be 2 seconds left. Because of the way the ticks interact or when the spells land and all those sorts of funky things. So sometimes you think you have more time than you do, and you might lose your Sunfire, which means that you lose the snapshotted value, and you have to cast another GCD, cast the Sunfire again. So the 5 second rule, as I'm calling it, tends to be pretty good advice for maintaining your Sunfire on a target. Star Surge should be cast immediately once it comes off cooldown, which in the current phase is every 6 seconds. But once you have the next full piece, will be 4.5 seconds. Starfall should be used on cooldown, unless there are periods in an encounter where lots of monsters or mobs are going to be coming out at a particular point in the fight. So Frankress, for example, you do not cast your Starfall on pull. You wait 10, 15 seconds for a few bugs to be around the boss. That's when you cast your Starfall to maximize the damage that you do. Because you're likely only going to get one cast for the entire encounter. If you're lucky enough to get 2 casts, then you say, screw the AoE component, I'm going to do it on pull so that I can get 2 out. Uh-huh. Okay? Your raid's probably not going to be happy about that, but that's the way you maximize your own personal damage. And then you only cast Starfire when you have Lunar Stacks from Eclipse available, and preferably always after a Star Surge to take advantage of the 80% damage buff that you get. Was that clear, or have I?
Yeah, I mean, it made sense to me. The only things I would add is I've been seeing some logs where people have been casting like 5 of a spell, like in a row. So either 5 Starfires or 5 Wraths. It's kind of easy sometimes to get into that just button spamming, and then all of a sudden you've run out of your Eclipse stacks, and now not only are you casting a non-eclipsed Starfire or like Star Surge buffed Starfire, it's just got nothing to add to its damage or anything. So that 5th Starfire is just kind of like you should have been probably using a Star Surge or at least casting a Wrath there for that last cast. And same with Wrath. I've been trying to get away from casting a lot of Wraths. I'm trying to keep those lunar eclipses like to 0. Like I want to, as soon as I get them, I'm trying to spend them because Starfire is just such a big value with the gear I've got. So yeah.
This is where the Nax gear is going to cause a little bit of change. So we've just gone through what our rotation is here. It looks like in Nax our rotation changes. And that's as a function of Star Surge changing.
Yeah.
But the rotation, to my mind, is going to get boring. It's going to be... So it'll be the same sort of starting movement that we went through, those first 7 spells. Once you cast your second Star Surge, the rotation looks like it's going to be Wrath, Starfire, Starfire, Star Surge. Wrath, Starfire, Starfire, Star Surge. You will never have problems with maintaining your dots, and you will never have problems with lunar stacks as a result of that rotation, because you're always generating 2 lunar stacks, and you're only ever consuming 2 lunar stacks. The problem with this is we're going to have periods where we're not casting anything, so that we can always cast Star Surge the moment it comes available. So it's a little clunky, particularly if you happen to get like 1 second Starfire, 1 second Starfire. Then you've got to wait half a second for the bloody, what's the spell called? Star Surge to become available again. So there are a few things like that I'm a little bit apprehensive about in Nax. And I'm hoping it won't be that big of an impact. Pardon me. On us throughout the raid, but net damage should go up. It just kind of goes against the ABC will always be casting. So I guess we'll wait and see.
Cool. All right. Anything else with the rotation? I've got one other topic here at the end.
At least not that I can think of. The only thing I would say is, if you are moving and you don't want to override your snapshotted buffs, dots, then that's the perfect time to cast Insect Swarm. But that's the only time.
And then you could downrank your Moonfire as well. I think it's rank 11 is the highest, so you could have a rank 10 Moonfire in your bar. So it'll only do the initial damage of Moonfire, but at least it'll be some sort of damage to keep your always be casting going. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Reputations. So the only one that I can think of that I've gotten to Exalted as a benefit is the Zandalar tribe from ZG, because we get that unlocks our shoulder enchant for the 18 spell power, and you're gonna have to be doing a lot of ZGs to get your helm and leg enchants anyways. So very important reputation. But I know they've added a lot of changes to items and enchants from other reputations, so I didn't know if you knew of any other ones that people should try to be getting to Exalted, like Argent Dawn, for example, like what benefits you can get from there.
Argent Dawn is going to allow you to get into Nax at a cheaper price. So if you get Exalted, you get to go in for free. If you're revered, you have to pay a nominal fee, and then that increases the lower you go down the reputation standing. But I would be saying if you're leveling, I would be trying to do some dungeons in there or some reputation farming around that. But I think you're right. The ZG one is basically the only one that I would say you need to focus on out of all the reputations. But beyond that, everything is about getting a pattern to craft. So if you want to start making some gold, then you have to farm the reputations. But of course, the big period of time to make that gold is kind of dissipated. So the only really relevant ones right now are the Thorium, the Cenarian Circle rep, but that's a pain in the backside to farm outside of the raids.
I'm gonna start farming it because our Bis ring is from, it's locked behind being Exalted with Cenarian Circle.
And word to the wise, that ring might be Bis in Nax because of how much value it gives, and because we have so many Starfall casts that could proc it, it means that the uptime is looking like it might be as much as 50-60%, which would mean that it is going to be best in slot ring. So if you are a sweaty guy and you want to maximize your output, if you're hearing squeaking, that's my puppy.
Oh no! My partner's leaving, and I'm like, "Oh, those her brake lights."
Yeah. So that ring is really, really valuable. So potentially you might need to farm the Cenarian rep just for that.
Do you think it's beneficial to wait before applying Moonfire and Sunfire to snapshot this ring, or you just do the rotation and hope that your Starfall procs this, or your precasted Wrath procs this, and then on those fights you'll have that extra damage bonus snapshotted, and it's just
I think you just hope.
Yeah, just hope and pray.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where if you sit there waiting for the proc and then cast your dots, what do you do with your trinket? Does your trinket just kind of sit there not being used for an extended period of time, or do you pop your trinket early? Yeah. And that has some better damage, values as well. So if you're able to get 2 trinket casts out and you're sitting waiting for a proc, then you're in trouble.
All right, cool. That's all the notes I had here for us to go over. I think we covered pretty much everything that there is to cover to get people prepped and ready for doing their raids, doing their dungeons, gearing up. Yeah.
Well, good. I mean, like I said, I think there is no better time to be a boomkin. WowHead just released an article showing the DPS results of the current phase, and boomkins are sitting at number 1. So if you are interested in getting into SoD or coming back, this is the best time as a boomkin you will ever have potentially in Classic. Enjoy it while it lasts, because these things have been proven to be taken away from us really quickly when we get to a powerful position. So let's just hope that we can maintain that spot in Nax, because everybody is going to go crazy. So even if you're not just a boomkin player and you're looking at picking up some other classes, everybody is going to have these crazy set bonuses activated. Some people really like this 6-piece bonus from previous phases, and they'll be coming back. It's going to be a wild time. And I think I saw somewhere that Nax was going to have 10 different difficulty levels, which I really dislike as a person who wants to go sweaty. It means that I'm going to be like, well, I want to raid number 10. And it means I'm not really comparing myself to the average player. But I also worry, and I think, oh my god, what does level 10 actually mean? Is it only going to be possible once you've got all your set piece bonuses? And I kind of hope that that's the case. It's impossible to clear. But hey, we'll wait and see.
I did the PTR, and those new hard mode mechanics it's going to take a little bit of getting used to for some of those wings. And
so you've seen some of it. I've not seen anything from it yet.
Yeah. There was one, the one with the dancing one and Lotheb at the end, whatever that wing's called. I'm terrible with remembering the wings. That one.
That's Plague Wing, I think.
There was, mushrooms would spawn, and I think I was getting some sort of damage bonus by standing next to the mushrooms, but then after so long, like 10 seconds after they had spawned, it would like knock you back and do some damage. So it seemed like the play was to kind of sit there, get a couple of stacks, and then try to move out of its range before it exploded on you.
Right.
There was another wing with the one where priests have to mind control.
Vesuvius, is it?
It might have been
Instructor Vesuvius?
Yeah, Vesuvius. Yeah, that wing. There was one like you have to do a random emote, and if you do the wrong if you do a wrong emote, then you get like feared or something for 6 seconds or something or you get damage taken. So you can't just like make a macro that's gonna have all the emotes, and once you get targeted, it was like a random amount of raiders would have to do an emote, but it didn't work for me. But other people were getting like the raid warning and having to do like a /bow or /beg or something.
We gotta have a what was it, the type, the speed typing tests is gonna become core gameplay.
You now have to type during raid.
I can just imagine the dads out there going, typing mid raid. They can't just spam their buttons.
Yeah, it's like, heal me. I gotta type my /beg. I misspelled it.
That'd be funny.
And that was we got to test difficulty 5. So I think we had like 22 people in there, and we didn't full clear it. We cleared the spider wing and we cleared that Lotheb wing, but the one with patchwork, that one seems to be very, very difficult. Something about getting debuffs and having to stack and having to spread, and it's almost like a raid wipe if you are a little bit off from spreading like fast enough. That wing is going to be the one that's going to be pretty frustrating, I think. But
well, look, I hope there's something interesting about Nax, because to be honest, Nax in Wrath really deflated me. I got really bored with Wrath after doing Nax so much in Classic from 2019, or would have been 2020 for Nax then. So I'm hoping Nax is interesting enough that I'm not like losing interest the moment I set my my 2 little feet in there. But hey. That's the game. That's what we're playing for. I'm more excited about this new Scarlet Monastery in Tyr's Hand raid.
Yeah. I went out there and took a little peek to see, because I know they hinted at the announcement that or of the PTR that you could maybe go out there and see some stuff, and it looks like the entire DK starting zone is unlocked. So I'm not sure. Is it going to be a questing zone? Is that just going to be the raid itself? But the gate is open in Tears Strand or whatever it's called. Tears Hand. Yeah. I thought that the raid was going to be one of those buildings right there where all those elites are, but it looks like that whole zone is now going to be open that we haven't been able to get to. So yeah, I'm stoked for that. I'm stoked for the Karazhan Crypts raid as well. Yeah,
see, they're the things that I wanted to see more of in SoD. You know, like parts of the world that were locked now aren't, and you know they'd be a part of your journey. I really like that lore expansion type thing, and I thought that kind of fed into the discovery things a little bit more than some of the stuff that we've gotten so far. But you know, if that's what's coming in Classic Plus, then I'll be excited for that.
All right, well, Wonder, I got to get out of here. It's New Year's Day, so I've got some celebrating to do with the family. Thanks for joining me again.
That's all right.
Talking about some Boomkin stuff here in SoD. I've been having a blast past at least month getting back into SoD. It's like you were saying earlier, it's never been better for Boomy.
It is, and I'm glad you're still doing it. SoD content's kind of fallen off a little bit from a lot of creators, so hopefully this video does well for you. And for those that have stuck through to the end, Balanced Druid's, place to be.
Hell yeah. All right, man. Thanks again.
All right, catch you later. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.